Hi, yesterday I was working on the map. I recorded two other videos talking about the map on the past. This is the third video. In this video, I would like to talk about how we fetch the data from the backend and some challenges we face. The first thought was let's fetch everything from the backend, fetch all the locations. But this was slow because we have dynamics on the map. We don't just fetch static locations and render them. We have some dynamics. User can, for example, limit the time frame. I want the locations, or in our case, it's events. The events happening next week only. He can say, okay, I want locations within specific area. And also rendering the location, they have conditions. Not everyone can see all the locations. So a lot of dynamics on the map. And of course, adding, removing, and so on. Locations, I mean. User can add locations, remove locations, update locations. So there is a lot of dynamics. We can't just fetch all the locations and render them. Second thought was, okay, let's fetch the locations within the center of the screen. So we have the center, we pick the center of the screen, the coordinates for the center, and then we fit the locations around the center within, for example, 25 kilometer around the center. This look fine. Okay, it solved one of the issues that we don't fetch everything. We only fetch limited number of locations around the center. But again, we have two problems. First, the center and the distance from the center, it is fixed. And if you want to make it dynamic, it's a bit of a challenge. For example, on the high zoom, on the higher zoom, that distance, let's say if it's 25 kilometer, it will bring small amount of locations, and you have to zoom away. If you zoom in, you will see more locations. Why? Because the distance on 25 kilometer on the top is different than the bottom. In the high zoom is different than the low zoom. So it's not the best experience. And if you try to, you say, for example, if you are in the high zoom, you make the distance function of the zoom, it's a bit complicated. It's a bit complicated calculations. Like, for example, if you have a high zoom, then the distance is a bit bigger. Then if you zoom in, distance is a bit smaller. You zoom in, smaller. It's again a bit of complications. What is a better approach? Better approach is to fetch the map boundaries. Map boundaries, it gives you the coordinates for the northeast and then the southwest. So you pick those two coordinates and you build the viewboard. You build a box, it will give you the viewboard. So you fetch the locations within this viewboard. It's much better approach. You don't care which zoom level are you in, and the user move up, down. It doesn't matter. It will give you the boundaries which you should fetch the points within those boundaries. And this is a better approach. But again, fetching all the locations on the boundary, it was a bit too much data. And it's a bit unpredictable. For example, maybe you are in a viewboard, then it doesn't have a lot of locations, it will be fast, quick. Then if you go to another viewboard, have a lot of locations, it will be too slow. Okay, it's not a consistent experience. You'll tell me, okay, it's expected, yes, but it will be too slow if you have a lot of locations, and it's unpredictable. You don't know how many locations you will fetch. This is a problem. Performance, if you don't know how many how many data you will fetch, it's a problem, because you might have receive much far more than expected, and it might cause a crash or too slow or unresponse or freeze for the screen. So you have to have predicted number of locations. How do we solve this issue? It's very simple. Just limit the number of locations. Instead of fetching all the location within the viewport, just fetch, for example, the nearest from the center, the nearest 1000. So you fetch all the locations sorted by the center, and limit to only 1000 or 500, whatever the case is. This way you have a predictable performance, and you fetch the things within the viewport, and you don't care about the zoom levels. Much far better approach. Another thing we face also, or another problem, is sending too many requests to the backend. So the case is, if user move up, down, right, left, you start to send requests. So every time the boundaries change and the center change, you send a request. That's a lot of requests. Of course, people they like the user. He like to play with the map. He want to zoom in, zoom out, and he don't want to see a slowness because he's just moving the map. Imagine if he zoom in, he have to wait. If he zoom out, he have to wait. If he go up, have to wait. Go down, have to wait. And we send a lot of requests at the back end. Imagine if you have millions of users, and then every user is playing with the map, and then you send maybe for each user 500 requests per only few minutes, maybe 1 minute even. Too much. So how do we solve this issue? We use debounce. Debounce, it's a known technique to solve this problem. Mostly used, for example, if you have autocomplete. If you have autocomplete, user is inputting some data, some text, and then you send this text to the backend to search for the data you should show in the autocomplete. So you don't send a request every time the user is typing. If he's typing, you just wait until he finished typing, and then you send only one request to fetch the data, and then you show it. In our case, the same, but the event is touching. So when the user touches the screen, we don't send any request. When he touch out of the screen, we wait for a cool-off period, 2 seconds, 3 seconds, to confirm that he already moved away from the screen and he's waiting for the result. Then we send one request to the backend fetching the data and render the data. This way we have kind of a better approach for sending the data to the backend. So I think that's cover the main areas. So first, just to wrap up, we don't fetch everything. We fetch only the data on the viewport, and we limit them. We don't fetch all the data on the viewport. Again, we only limit them to, for example, 500 markers or 1000, whatever the case. And the third thing is doing a debounce, so that we don't send a lot of requests. We only send requests when we make sure that the user he only want the location within this specific area. I hope this is useful. We'll see you in the next video.